This presentation is about the basics of interviewing, brought to you by the Office of Career Development and Calling at Bethel University. In this presentation, we will go over the different types of interviews that there are, what to do and how to prepare before an interview, what behavior-based interviewing questions are, and then sample questions will be at the end. There are several types and formats of interviews, and whatever one that you are going to complete depends on the company, the position, what field you are in, and of course, what times we are in. So there is a list on the screen with many different types of interviews. An informational interview is where you have an interview with someone, but it is informal. So that means that you are not actually asking for a job, you are not interviewing for a job. Rather, you are learning more information about that person, about that position, that company, or that field. An HR screening is typically when the HR recruiter will reach out to you and ask you some preliminary questions before that you will be asked for an actual interview with the hiring committee. A phone interview usually is what happens in the HR screening, but it can happen in an actual interview as well, where the interview is completed over the phone. Then, of course, there is video or an online type of interview, and that is where you are remote and you are on the video camera with the hiring committee. In person is where you will go to either a meeting place or that office that you will be working at. There can be a group panel, so that means there are several individuals that will be asking you questions and they are on the interview committee. Then there are case types, so that means that you will be asked to review a case study and then walk through the different steps of that case. And then a round interview is where actually you will be with others that are also interviewing for that job or that internship, and you will be answering questions as a group. Regardless of what type of interview you will have, a good question to ask yourself is, when does the interview begin? This might seem shocking to many, but once you submit an application or once you reach out to that individual, that is when your interview begins. So this is why we want to keep in mind your social media posts and pictures, and also your emails to and from the individual, either the HR or the person you will be interviewing with. All the phone calls leading up to the actual interview. Your references might be contacted before your interview, so make sure your references are notified that they have been actually submitted as a reference. And even in the parking lot, when you are walking up to the interview, you are already in it. You don't know who you're going to run into the parking lot, and you don't know who you're going to see, and it's a very small world, and who knows who. So if you ask someone a question, or if you're talking on the phone, someone could be listening, someone could be watching. So always be on your best behavior as soon as you start interacting with that company or with that individual. Now, these are things you want to keep in mind as you prepare for your interview. You want to study the company's or school's mission, vision, and or value. Usually this is listed on the website of that company or school under the About section, and you can find their statements of purpose right on that page. Now this is important because you want to match your application materials as well as your answers to make sure that you are fitting yourself into that mission, vision, and or value. You want to prepare questions. Now, prepare questions that they are going to ask you, and also prepare questions that you will ask them. And we will go over a few samples of these later. Of course, practice. Practice in front of the mirror how you are responding to questions, even how you are asking questions. You want to practice as much as you are able to. Plan an outfit, even if you are on a video call, and I would even say a phone call. You want to dress professionally. We always suggest dressing one step above what you would actually be wearing in that job or that school. So always dress professionally and really match what that company is as well. And of course, review the job posting or the graduate school application. So you want to make sure that you are well aware of the company's or the school's requirements so that you are hitting those as you are answering questions. So this list is obvious to some, but we like to repeat it to ensure that it stays in your mind. So details do matter. Of course, arrive early. On time is late, so arrive at least 5 to 10 minutes early, and I would say give yourself a lot more time, especially if it's a place that you haven't been to before. Make sure you have time to park, walk, find it, leave yourself room for getting lost or having to use the restroom before, so definitely arrive early. No gum, food, or drinks. Now, maybe a water if you absolutely need it. A lot of times they will offer you something to drink and you can bring that in as well. So I would say the one exception to this is you may bring a water. Making sure you turn off your cell phone and even any smartwatches so that you don't have any alarms or notifications going off. Be mindful of scents, so perfumes and colognes. You want to err on the side of caution since there are people that have sensitivities or allergies to scents. So make sure that if you are wanting to use that, it is in moderation. And of course, always smile. Fake it till you make it. I know it can be nerve-wracking, so make sure that you are smiling throughout the entire interview. Next, we will move on to what is behavior-based interviewing. So the thought behind behavior-based interviewing is that history or patterns will often repeat. So past experiences and responses to specific situations can be used effectively as a good predictor of future success. So they want to hear what you have done in the past in certain scenarios because they will indicate how you will perform in the future. Behavior-based interviewing questions usually start by asking, "Tell me about a time when." How you answer this question is in a formula, and that is the STAR formula. And as you can see on the right side, STAR stands for situation, task, action, and either response or the result of that situation. So you always want to set up your answer by telling a story. So you say what the situation was, what your task or your responsibility was for that situation, how you took action, how you responded to that, and then what was the response, what was the end result of that situation. Always making sure you are closing out the whole story with how it impacted you or others. When you are asked behavior-based questions, you want to think about why they're asking that specific question and how you can figure out quickly why they're asking is what matters to the company. Think about their mission and values. Think about the qualifications or experience and knowledge that is required for that specific position. Now, when you think back to these things, you will be able to come up with an example that relates to what the company or the school is looking for in a candidate. Through studying a job posting and the organization's mission and values, you can anticipate the type of questions that an interview will ask, as the company's needs will be reflected in the types of questions asked. For example, if the organization or school is looking for someone who can develop relationships, they might ask, "Tell me about specific times that you have attained and nurtured relationships." So always think about the need. Listen to what they are wanting out of that question, and then making sure that you have a set list of examples and experiences that you can draw so that you are answering the question with your specific and relevant experience. Attached in the description of this YouTube video, you can find the link to another example video of behavioral-based questions and how to answer them. Interviewers ask both good and bad scenarios. They use these questions to draw out information about you. So just a little disclosure here, when they ask about bad scenarios, such as "tell me about a failure," you don't want to talk about your absolute worst failure. You want to share a failure, share what you learned about that, and how you came out stronger on the other side. Things that you should be looking at before your interview include researching the position or the school. Make sure that you know what you are applying for and what you are interviewing for so that you can come up with different stories and examples that you can relate directly to what type of candidate they're looking for. First impressions do matter, so make sure that you are professional at all times and showing off your best self. Be ready for behavioral-based questions. Have a list of them set out, making sure that you are practicing your answers to those so that you're not caught off guard. Focus on your professional and educational experiences. Of course, you can add in a few personal and characteristic items with your answers, but really we want to pull examples from your professional and educational experience that directly relate to the position or to the school. And last, make sure that you have a set of questions that you are going to ask the interviewee. This should be about 5 questions that you have prepared, depending on the amount of time that you will have at the end of the interview to ask. It's always good to have a couple on deck. You always want to follow up after an interview. This is where you will be able to restate your interest in the position, as well as thank the interviewer for their time and consideration. These days, this is typically done through an email just because it's the fastest form. How to address your email, you want to make sure you have someone's contact information. So if that's the HR professional or the hiring manager, you can send it to them and ask them to forward on to the person you interviewed with. Or if you have the main contact for the interviewer, you can send it directly to them. And if you interviewed with a group, you can either send a message individually to each person, or you can send it to the main interviewer and then ask them to forward it on, or state in the email message, "Dear Interview Committee." We do have resources for you. If you head to bethel.edu and search Career Development and Calling, you will see a list of resources to help prepare you for your interview. Our office does offer mock interviews that you can partake in, as well as helping you with any other career development and calling questions that you might have. How to schedule an appointment, you will do so through Handshake. If you do not have a Handshake account, you can create one by going to bethel.joinhandshake.com and use your Bethel login information. All of our meetings are virtual right now, so please go ahead and schedule your appointment with us today.